Hello and welcome back. Once again, my name's Kara, and this is a channel where I am documenting a low-buy project for the year 2020, and I'm doing that because it helps me to keep a very tight budget, and that helps me to pay off a whole lot of student loans. And my goals for this year are to use 75% of my net income towards my student loans, and that has proven to be a very difficult challenge. I have rarely hit that actual percentage, although I am usually close. I'm usually within a few percentage points, and again, this month is no different. I work at a natural food store, and so I have a very modest income, and I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. So at the end of the month, or at least close to the end of the month, once I've paid all of my bills, I like to do a check-in on how I used my income this month and how it was keeping my low-buy rules. And then finally, what did I pay on my student loans and what percentage of my net income does that represent? So this is that video. I also, the other weeks of the month, I sort of pick a monthly theme and do some fun things. And June, um, June was June, and I hardly did any videos. The year 2020 seems to be all curveballs, and June was one of the worst. So I didn't talk a lot about any particular theme, and it didn't help that I hadn't chosen a theme in advance. And so as June got rolling, and it's been quite a month for everybody in the United States and even the world, I really didn't have much to say about my finances, at least. So anyway, let's get into this review and talk about what I did manage to do this month that is part of the theme of this channel, in case that is actually what you're here for. So yeah, I actually want to do just a quick review of what my low-buy rules are so you have an idea of what I try to do. There are 7 of them, and they're pretty simple. My first rule is to leave my money at home so that helps me avoid impulse shopping. That way, for the most part, if I'm spending money, it's for some reason that I have already planned. My second rule is that I don't shop online, I don't rent anything online, I don't subscribe to anything, and that's actually fairly easy for me to do. I'm allowed to do free trials, but I've always been actually pretty good at putting the date when it's about to charge you in my planner, and so I go and make sure I cancel those free trials in time and enjoy the trial and not get charged and not be subscribed to anything. So yeah. Third rule is to use up every bit of whatever it is that I have before I go shopping to replace it. So things like personal care products or actually even clothing items. A couple of weeks ago, maybe it was sometime in May, I showed a pair of pants that I wore for many, many years, at least 8 years. And finally, this year in May, at some point early in the month, those pants finally were worn out. They actually ripped while I was wearing them at work, and fortunately, I had some leggings on. So anyway, use up everything that I have before I go shopping for more is a rule in my year, and it's kind of just part of my lifestyle. Fourth rule is that I can buy whatever is in my budget up to the budgeted amount, pretty basic. Fifth rule, I can go to the doctor or the dentist or to an eye doctor or any kind of health care that I might need, so that this is just trying to keep a good budget. I'm not doing anything crazy and putting my health at risk, but I'm also fortunate that I rarely need to do these things. The sixth rule is very specific to my work. Since I work at a grocery store and it has very limited parking, one of the ways that they encourage employees to not use up all of the parking that customers need is if we walk to work or use any kind of alternate transport, we get these punch cards, and when you've filled a punch card, it's worth $10. Well, obviously, I can spend those at the store, and that's the only place they're any good. So my little low-buy rule, which is we're going to talk about the need for all these rules. My low buy rule is that I can use those $10 cards on whatever I want, which is obviously the case because they're not good anywhere else. So I use them at the store to get myself a little treat from time to time. And my very last rule is about side gigs because I do several. I usually have many jobs cleaning for some people in my neighborhood and another woman in a small town nearby. But because of the pandemic, I haven't been really comfortable going in anyone's house, so I haven't been doing those jobs. But I'm very fortunate because recently I've had sort of a renaissance of dog sitting and cat sitting side gigs. And so this summer I am making quite a bit of money on the side. And anyway, the rule about side gigs is that I can use the money I earn from those for whatever I might want as long as I am 2 months ahead on rent. And that's a pretty steep thing to accomplish before I can just go spending money on something that I want. So I've actually never even had that rule come into play. Getting 2 months ahead on rent is, well, I don't know what that would feel like yet. But I continue to manage and get by just fine, and there's nothing to worry about right now. So those are the rules. And this month, I was able to keep most of them. Like I said about the using up everything that you have before you buy more, that is actually just my lifestyle. And I've been considering that not only do I need to do a monthly check-in and review of the low buy, I kind of want to review it in general and maybe redesign it because most of these rules are just the way I live. The two rules that are difficult are the first one and the last one. The first one, not carrying my money with me to avoid impulse buys. I am a recovering spender and I very much struggle with impulse buys. And many times throughout the month, I will carry my wallet and I will have my bank card or my credit card available in it. And almost every time, if I have my money with me, I end up finding some reason to spend some money. And it's amazing, but on the days where I'm not carrying any money, I never find anything that I have to buy. So definitely rule number one is my biggest challenge. And then not spending side gig money on anything until I've saved up 2 months rent. I actually have broken that rule, and I did break it this month. I had a small side gig job taking care of a cat for a few days, and I got $40, and that was great, but I just blew it. I didn't put it in a little folder where I save up rent for the future, so I totally wasn't going to get 2 months ahead on rent because the money that normally helps me get there, I didn't put in those envelopes. I didn't save it towards rent in the future. So anyway, it is a challenge. And so I'm thinking about redesigning my low buy because the middle rules, 2 through 6, are completely unnecessary because that's just how I live. I don't do any online shopping, and that's easy for me to continue not online shopping. I very rarely need to go to the doctor. I wouldn't stop myself if I did need to, but I don't need a rule about it. Yeah, and like using up everything that I have before I go buy a replacement, that's just very normal to me. That's how I always have lived. So I don't need a rule about these things, but it's very clear that I do need rules like rule number 1, don't carry my money with me. If I need something, I know what I need. I need food, and I can plan when I go get food, and I need fuel in my vehicle from time to time, and I can see that coming. It's not a surprise or an impulse. I need to pay my rent. I need to pay for my phone. There aren't any surprises in my life when it comes to necessities. And so I really could leave my money at home on all the other days. I really could. And it is so hard for me to trust that and not think, oh, I can carry it with me today and I just won't use it. But like, what is so hard about taking the credit card out of my wallet and carrying the wallet to have my ID with me and stuff like that? But leave the freaking money. I have agonized about this before. Just last month, I've agonized about this. Um, so this is clearly the place where the rubber hits the road in my little low buy challenge. And then as far as spending that money from the side gig, instead of saving it towards rent, I have no excuse. I knew exactly what I was doing. And that is money that could have gone towards rent in the future, or I could have deposited that cash into the bank and paid more of my loan down. So I made that choice. And now looking at the math, I kind of regret it. I also, it's hard to live this way sometimes where, I mean, trying to use 75% of my income onto debt means I'm living on and using around a quarter of my income. And it's a serious restriction. I am still happy and grateful, and I do have everything that I need, and I have a great quality of life. But you can't just go do whatever you want and not think about it. And so I feel that most of the time. I am a recovering spender for sure. um, yeah, so there might be some changes to the shape of the low buy, and I will just kind of forget about those rules that are not really a challenge to keep, and that's just kind of how I live, but I might focus a little more in on the rules that are actually a challenge. And speaking of challenges, I have been in sort of a self-imposed 10K, and my 10K is not running because of all of the fun and active things that I enjoy doing. I despise running. I do not run unless there are like zombies or something coming at me. But my 10K is that during these 6 months, and it started in April, it ends at the end of September. In these 6 months, because of the CARES Act, there's no interest accruing on my student loans. And so my 10K challenge is that during that time, I'm going to pay off $10,000 of my debt so that it's all principal. And when that interest does finally kick back in, which I hate, at least it will have less principal to like punch me in the face with, and I will get to punch it back right in its little loan face. So yeah, my 10K challenge. And actually, I can cheer up a little bit about how challenging it was to keep my rules this month because I am right on track to get that 10K in handily. We are exactly at halfway through it, and I paid just over $5,000 so far. So I got to keep it up, and it is difficult, but it's totally possible. And seeing that it's totally possible and seeing progress that is, it's working, that's really encouraging to me. So I think that will happen. And so then let's get to the point. The final stats for the month of June. In the month of June, I paid $2,072 on my student loans, and that represents 71.8% of my net income. But that's a big payment, right? And if you've been watching this channel, if you've seen any of my other check-ins, that's a few $100s more than most of my payments, but it's the same percentage of my net income. So what happened this month? The math is all wonky. I'm a little deflated, I'll admit, by that percent. I'm very goal-driven, and having this goal of using 75% of my net income and then falling short by just a few percent points most of the time is very frustrating for me. And again, I wonder if I should reevaluate that goal as well. But I keep seeing all of the reasons why, if I kept my low buy rules, it would be possible to do that. So I'm leaving that goal intact, and It is tricky. But anyway, you may have noticed that I paid, as I said, $2,072 on my debt this month. And honestly, that's usually close to what my net income is. So what happened this month? Well, I earned quite a lot more money. This month, there was a surprise at the store where I work, and we all got a profit share bonus, and that was wonderful. So every employee, and it was sort of scaled out based on how long you had worked there in like 3-month increments. And I worked there for a year and a half, so I was right up in the prime range of getting the biggest piece of these bonuses. It was great. um, anyway, I got a bonus, and so my income was way up, and I was really excited about what that meant. For a little while, I thought, oh my goodness, maybe I'll end up using like 90% of my income. That would be incredible. But like I said, June is just one curveball after another. And sometime halfway through the month, I had a terrible pain in the neck. A terrible pain in the neck. And I have had an injury to my neck several years ago, and it got very irritated. And so I went to a body mechanic. There's a wonderful guy here in town, and he doesn't call himself a chiropractor. I don't know. He uses a few different modalities of body work, but he does a very good job. I know a 70-plus-year-old marathon runner that he works on, and if she trusts him to keep her running at 70, I think I trust him to help me keep functioning at 37. So I did go see him, and he worked on my neck, and it helped, but that cost a little bit of money. And then this was actually a really cool opportunity that happened to come along when I did have a tiny bit more money than usual. And so I took this opportunity that came my way, and that is I bought half a pig. I bought half a pig. Now, how do you buy half a pig? Well, you pay for it in advance, a certain amount, and there's a farmer nearby who is going to be raising pigs, and through a friend of a friend, I got connected to them and got to buy half of one of the pigs. And so in the fall, the pigs will be harvested, and I will get half a pig of meat. And there will be some costs associated with that harvest. And so I know that it has to be taken to a USDA approved facility for its slaughter. And there's a few of those around, so that's no big deal, but there will be a fee associated with that. And then it needs to be processed. And this is where I'm going to try to save a little more money because my dad knows how to butcher. And when I grew up, he would always go hunting, and I helped him butcher and process many, many animals. And so I have talked my dad into, helping me process this pig when it's harvested. So I will only need to pay for the slaughter, and I will only need to pay for getting it halved. And then I will take my half pig, and my dad and I are going to take care of it. And I think that'll be really fun because I remember doing that with him when I was a kid, and a pig won't be that much different than other animals that we have butchered, and then I will have quite a bit of meat. So far, I have paid $100. That was a deposit on the pig, and so there will be a finishing fee that kind of helps pay for all the food that the pig ate, and whatnot. Like, it's a little bit risky and an impulse because I actually don't know what this pig will weigh when it's done. And so when I pay for it by the pound at that point, it could be a lot. It could be just a normal sized pig and relatively within the range that I'm estimating I'll need to pay for it. So I will keep you posted about the half pig and what that does to my budget. But this is something I've talked about. I care a great deal about local food, and I try to eat 100% local food. So far in 2020, I have eaten 100% local food. But there is quite a bit of, it takes a lot of money up front to buy an animal right now. And it also means that you need to have the freezer space for it. And when I finally get this pig, I actually need to borrow some freezer space from my parents and possibly even from my sister. And so while buying an animal ends up very economical as far as price per pound, it's difficult for so many people to take advantage of that because you have to have the money all at once, and that is going to be a challenge for me. And you have to have the space for it, and that's a challenge, but less of one because I have people that I can share it with, and who will share some freezer space with me in return. But yeah, local food is really good and really important to support. But right now, the way most meat processors work, um, even at the local level, it's a big commitment, and it's challenging for individuals. So that's definitely something I pay attention to and I'm going to experience. But I'm pretty excited about that. So anyway, because I bought a pig and because I went to the doctor, oh my goodness, I ended up using quite a bit of that bonus instead of getting to use it to pay a lot of my student loan. So I had more income than usual, but I also had a couple of expenses that are very out of the ordinary for me. So yeah, I paid $2,072 on my student loan, and I used 71.8% of my net income on the debt. So awfully close to the goal of 75%. But not quite there, but we'll see. I'm still encouraged a great deal that the 10K challenge is working, and yeah, like next month, I will not buy another pig. No matter how many wonderful deals for pigs come along, I will not be buying another pig. So sudden surprise expenses like that are good opportunities for me, that won't happen again. So who knows? Wouldn't it be awesome if I got another bonus? That's not going to happen again. Yeah. So that's how the month went. Challenge with carrying my money with me, and I've got to just follow rule number one. Follow rule number one. Leave your money at home. Next week, I'm going to do a book review. That's one part of this channel that, since I film on Mondays and I post on Thursday, and some months, 4 to be specific, 4 months this year had a 5th Monday. And so I decided that when there is a 5th Monday, I'll do a book review. So in a week, I'm going to pick one of the books off my shelf that has had a big impact on my life, and I'll tell you about it. They're usually older books. I don't obviously go shopping for books, so I don't have a ton of new ones. But the ones that I have kept and moved with so many times, they are books that are very dear to me. So I will pick one and share it with you, and maybe you will find out that you love it as well. And then in July, I'm going to talk about eating meat. Once again, I have been eating a carnivore diet. In July, it will have been 2 years. I've been eating an all meat, all animal products diet. Haven't eaten a salad, haven't eaten vegetables. Yeah, I don't eat anything that comes from a plant. And I feel great, so I was going to review a couple more in-depth things in July instead of just like how did I get into eating only meat and things like that I have talked about before. So July will be all about what it's like to have been a carnivore for 2 years. And yeah, at the end of the month, I will give another review and hopefully have punched my student loans right in their little loan faces. I hope you're well. I hope you're staying safe. And I will see you in a week.